Hello folks, I want to do a video on the use of the Enigma machine. We've made the decision in the campaign to use the Enigma. It's a lot of fun when you learn how to use it. Its use is not that hard, and it just adds a little extra nice little flavor to the campaign when we're communicating with each other in over using encrypted messages. And so there's a couple ways to go about getting yourself an Enigma simulator. The one that I'm using here can be found here. If you just type in Enigma Simulator Subsim, it is hosted on Subsim. It's called the Enigma Simulator. It is a small little installation. You will simply get an icon that looks like this. That is your Enigma. The other tool that I have open here is the codebook tool, so you don't need to have this. I will publish these onto our Discord or Subsim sites, and they will be based on actual month and year to avoid any confusion. So when we send messages in the campaign, we are actually using the actual date of the current year. And we would, as far as times to use, we are using GMT, or if you want to call it Zulu time. Greenwich Mean Time is a standardized time worldwide, obviously. So we will use Zulu time as the transmission time, so for purposes of figuring out what day and what settings to use. So once you've got the Enigma simulator, there is also ones also, by the way, on mobile devices you can get, but this one for desktop is pretty handy. The Enigma machine, I won't go into the sort of the background and the history of it here. There's plenty of reading, especially with the manual that comes with this particular software here. But suffice it to say, there's a certain number of steps that you need to go through, and it's once you've done a few of these, it's not very difficult. So for purposes of our campaign, we will use the Kriegsmarine methodology of the 3-rotor. You can see this one if you open the cover by clicking these buttons here. You can change the type of Enigma that you're using. So you can, this should say Heer. Wehrmacht was all the armed forces, but what that should say is Heer. Heer and Luftwaffe used this 3-rotor called Enigma 1 with a B reflector. Okay, that's what this is here, is the reflector, B reflector. Here's the one with C reflector, and now the Kriegsmarine M3 with a B reflector is actually, this is the one we will use until further notice in the game, in the campaign, is the 3-rotor with the B reflector. Okay, so knowing that, the first thing you want to do, obviously you need to have an idea of what your message is. So what I just usually use Word, and just to go over the format that you'll typically see with this is, the first thing I will type in here is the name of the recipient. Okay, it's going to be the to from so and so. So let's say I'm sending one to Captain Summers. So I would say Summers, and then I will put FR as from, and then I will put STOSS, which is the first part of my handle on Discord. So I will do that. And then the next thing I will do is I'll put the current time in Zulu time. So I'm GMT -5, so I know that it's that I am currently at 0318. Is that right? 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 0318. 0318, and I'll modify that. Actually, I'll put a Z here, so it's a Zulu time, and then I put an equals, and then I'm going to leave a couple spaces here, and I'll go over what this is in a second. So, and then the message below. So the first thing we do is, this is just the format, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type our message in plain text that we want to do. And so in this particular case, we're going to say, let's just say, this video will get you up to speed on Enigma. Okay, X is a period. Okay, and then space. Hope you enjoy X. Okay, and the other thing to note is if you need to type a number in there, you need to spell the number out. So let's say we want to put 130 for whatever reason. We have to say 130. Okay, and then we'll put X again. X are periods. There was several examples of format type stuff, but really the X is the most important one. That's a separator. That's a stop. And so let's say that's our plain text message that we want to do. Okay, so we've got the shell of our this up here doesn't get encrypted up here. Just this part will be encrypted right here. So so the next step, what I typically do is I just make a couple spaces here, and then I'm going to put my encrypted stuff up here. But the first step, and this is a function of the encryption, of the secrecy of this historically, was you had these codes over here called Kengruppen, and what that literally means is identifying groups or identification groups. So we know that it's 0321 Zulu time, and that's going to be on the 19th, right? So we know that we need to use these settings, okay, for purposes of setting up our Enigma to send. So therefore, as a double check for the recipient, we actually will, and since the Kriegsmarine one will generate, the Kriegsmarine used 4-letter groups. So the groupings were 4 letters. So what we would do is we would pick one of these Kengruppen, and then we'd add a random letter afterwards. So let's use KHG. So we'll say, and the Kengruppe always goes at the beginning of the message. So you'd say KHG, and then I use this random letter sequence here to generate just random letters. So I just give me a T. Okay, so it got me a T. T. All right, so that's the first group of 4 in the message. This does not get it doesn't get encrypted or decrypted. It's just there to as a double check, so that the recipient knows to look at the first lettering group and say, oh, okay, well, I think it was sent on the 19th because that's the timestamp on it or whatever. It's the 19th. It's when I received it. But as a double check, let me just make sure that these. Then they look at the code sheet and say, okay, KHGT. Okay, yep. I see KHG there. Okay, that must have been using 19th settings. Okay, but the one thing to be careful of is that none of these on the day before the actual day, that based on the random letter you picked, that none of that combination is actually present in the previous day, because then you can obviously see how that would cause confusion. Okay, so that's the first step, is you get your Kengruppe teed up there. Okay, so then we know it's the 19th. All right, so we'll highlight that. All right, these are our settings we're going to set up here. So here's how this works. We set our machine up. It's very simple. So the first the first section here, Walzenlage. So Walzen are the rotors. That's these here. Okay, and Lage is position. So the Walzenlage is the position of the rotors. Pretty straightforward. So on the 19th, we start with 4, 1, and 3. And the settings, Ringstellung is the position, literally means ring position. Ring setting, rather, more accurate, ring setting is the settings on the individual, the ring settings on the rotors themselves. So on the 19th, we need our Walzen, our rotors, to be in the order of 4, 1, and 3, and each of them will be set respectively to 16, 22, and 11. So we say, here's 4 first, we click on it, we get it here, we need to set it to 16. So we click it up to 16 and we put it in the first slot. Boom. Okay, the next one is rotor 1. We take 1 out and we know we need to set it to 22. So we can go backwards quicker. Boom. Okay. Now the next one is rotor 3. So we put up 3 and that needs to be set to 11. So we set it to 11. Now we're done. Our machine is set up. We're on Crease M3 with the B reflector. We've got our rotor set up correctly. We're ready to go. We push this here to close the cover. Okay, so our machine, that step is done. The next step is the plug board. So the plug board, this was one of the main drivers of why the Enigma was so secret, because of these infinite combinations of, if you were to see this in an actual machine, these are wires that hook one letter up to another. So there's obviously infinite combinations of these, which made the Enigma that much more secure. So that is a big part of the settings here. So we read across here, and these are the Steckerverbindungen, means essentially plug connections. Okay, and that's what that means literally, but it's your plug board connection. So we connect B with W. You just click like this, B, W. Okay, now CT, CT, and we go EF, EF, and then we go GP, GP, and then we go HJ, HJ, like so, IX, IX, and then KZ, KZ, and then we have LO, LO, NQ, NQ, and finally SU, SU. So we'll just check real quick. We got BW, CT, EF, GP, HJ, IX, KZ, LO, NQ, SU. Okay, we are on good shape there. So that's set. So we click up here, we go back here. Now the next step is we make up the message key. So the message key is 2 3-letter groups that we randomly pick on our own. And again, I go back to here and I say I want 2 groups of 3. Okay, so this generated me 2 random groups of 3 that will be our message key. So this will be given in a fashion to the recipient so they know how to set their machine up. So we don't need this anymore. We're done with this, okay? But we say, okay, TNB MCU. So I put in, I set my rotors up here to T, N, B, and then I also put TNB here, because the recipient will need to know that, right? And then I type in MCU. I've encrypted this second key, message key. So that gives me JAX. That's the second part I put in, JAX. Okay, so that's in. All right, so then that's in for the recipient. So now what I do is, and this is a very important step because this is actually very easy to screw up. I got JAX, right? That's the encrypted message key. But I do not set that here. I still set the original MCU in here in order to encrypt the message. I encrypt it using MCU because the recipient will put in JAX to derive MCU to set it. But therefore we need to encrypt using MCU in order for the results to make sense. So one thing I do here is I just push delete to clear this out. I set MCU there. Okay, so that's set up and we're ready to encrypt. We come up here, we go to auto typing. And now I take my message. I don't include this. I take my plain text message, just like this, copy and paste it here. I suggest going very fast unless you just want to see the clack, 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 clack. Just do very fast. Push start. Your message is now being encrypted. Okay. So now all you do is you click here, and you simply just take this, copy it, paste it after the Kenngruppe here, and now you've got your encrypted message here after the Kenngruppe. Okay, so now the next step is you put the number of characters. We know they're groups of 4, so we simply count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is 64 64 characters there, 65, 66, 67, right? So pretty straightforward. 16 times 4 is 64, plus 3 is 67 characters, so I put 67 up here. That's the number of characters that's in the message. So I've got 2 summers from me. At the time, it has 64 characters in it. This is the message key you need to set your machine up correctly. And then equals again, and then the message. Okay, so that's what the message looks like. So this, there's the plain text down there, there's the encrypted message. Okay, so then what will happen is you'll simply just go into Discord. Okay, and then you would go into radio traffic, Funkverkehr, or if we're doing this over the subsim site, eventually we would do it over there. But you can see here's a couple of messages already. I would paste copy and paste the message into it like this, and I just at the actual people so they get a notification for it, and that's that. So it's as simple as that. So that's how you encrypt a message and send it. It's very easy. The most time-consuming thing is just setting your machine up right. So we'll close that, and now let's say we are on the receiving end. Okay, well, the receiving end would look something like this. They'd say the first step is they'd pull up their code sheet, which is a shared code sheet. Everybody has it, and they'd say, okay, they see a timestamp of 0318 Zulu. Well, they know just based on when it was sent what the date is. Okay, they say, okay, well, I'm GMT -5, right? So in my 0318 puts me, I'm in the 18th right now, so if I add 5 to that, I get the 19th, so they must have been using 19 settings. But if I'm not sure, I look at the Kenngruppe at the front here, KHGT, and say, let's just double check here. KHG, there's KHG right there. They did use 19, in fact. Okay, so that's how you would check that. And then of course the recipient would go in and set their machine up to be those exact same settings, the plug board, the rotors, etc., and the ring settings, etc. Make sure it's all set up parallel, and then they're seeing this. Okay, so then they would on their end, it's very straightforward. What they do is they would say, they'd use this message key and they'd say, okay, I need to set my machine to TNB, and then I need to type in JAX and see what I get. And you know what I'll get? I will get MCU, which is what we use to encrypt it. Okay, so I will type in JAX. MCU. That's what I need to set my machine to. MCU. Okay, perfect. Hit delete, clear it out. Now I simply copy everything but the Kenngruppe in the front, go into auto typing, say that wasn't there, paste very fast, start. Aha, okay, now you can see it's our message, but easier to make it easier to read, we do a couple things here. We uncheck copy as groups, convert abbreviations, uncheck everything but the period. Okay, in this case, apply new format, this video will get you up to speed on Enigma, period. Hope you enjoy. And then we typed in, we did 130 just to demonstrate how to do numbers. Okay, so that's it. So now we've decrypted the message that we've been sent. That is it. There is nothing more complicated than that. It is very straightforward. That is how we are running Enigma in the campaign. Our staff is generally familiar with Enigma, so direct questions at any of them, but you can certainly direct them to me as well, and I will be glad to help you out. With that, take care and talk soon.